Welcome to the RevOps Loop podcast with Maarten and Stjepan, brought to you by Digital Reach and the nonprofit tech shop. Get ready to learn about revenue operations, HubSpot, and beer.
Hey guys, welcome back. RevOps Loop podcast. Stjepan and I, here we are again. Topic of the day, and this is very much in Stjepan's wheelhouse, is enablement. So more specifically, revenue operations, enablement, trainings, how to go about it, do's and don'ts, how we do it in our day to day. And so, as mentioned, this is, we work with Stjepan for quite some time. This is 100% Stjepan's day to day, focused on enablement on a daily basis. So, Stjepan, yeah, I would say kick us off. Where do you want to head with this topic today?
Yeah, so I wanted to pick this topic and because like I know Martin, you're currently in New Hampshire and you are delivering an in-person training for one of our customers, where we will have after that like more 4 to 6 weeks more trainings with them online. So I just put Martin in the front seat for this one. He didn't know what to expect, but wanted to chat about like how to think about creating trainings. What is important when you're in person versus when you're online? How to keep people engaged, and then also who can deliver those trainings based off like
Right.
the goals, the outcomes, the departments, or maybe the team that's involved, or the size of the project. So, kicking off
Yes.
back to you, Martin, can you tell
Yeah.
us more about what happened this week, and then how did you approach creating that in-person training? And
Yeah.
we can start from there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. And so, in this case, and I think this is a format we like to use, is we combine an in-person training with then a virtual follow-up, right? And not just one, but like a multi-touch series of follow-up trainings. And so the general idea here is we're doing a in-person training to the larger team. And when I say the larger team, basically anyone who's going to be having some involvement in revenue operations, sales, marketing, front end sales as well, call centers, anyone who's essentially touching the lead deals, pipelines was involved. Um, the idea was this week's in the in-person training to kind of go through or touch on all of the different topics that go into RevOps. And we've discussed some of them here as well, right? Sales and marketing, handoffs, data hygiene, all of those things. Get everyone on the same page and make sure everyone understands how the systems work, right? I think that's a big one of like, hey, how does your CRM logic actually work? In this case, HubSpot, different objects, how do they relate to each other? What's important to keep in mind? Not so everyone becomes, a HubSpot admin at the end of it, right? But so everyone has an understanding of, again, the logic behind the system. And then what we combine this with is after the training and we go through some of the general setups. We have a feedback survey. I think that's a very important part, not just to know how the training went, that's obviously important, but also to see where folks from different roles need more guidance, right? And this helps shape our follow-up sessions, right? And so I know in this case, you and I have already been preparing these follow-up sessions, but these are not set in stone because we really want to make sure we stay light in our feet and flexible. We give these in-person trainings. This is a great place to gather feedback, not just from these feedback surveys, but when you're there, it's just easy to chat to people, get input, right? So we're noting everything down. Then we go back to the drawing board, right? And we say, okay, so these follow-up sessions, what do we need to make sure we need to include and exclude? Well, it turns out we need to emphasize a little bit more the handoff process or the intake process for new deals in this in some scenarios. Like, where did we find some gaps that came out of that initial training and feedback, and how do we then tailor our follow-up sessions accordingly? And then in these follow-ups, the idea is not to have this with the wider team all the time, right? This is where you want to really split up the different groups and just focus on what's relevant for who, right? And so yeah, that's going to be our general format. So we went through the in-person now. We'll start preparing our follow-up sessions. We're kind of auditing all the feedback surveys at the moment, getting all of that input into a nice templated document, and then we'll start working on our sessions. So I like that format. I know we've done it in the past. Works quite well, I feel. Um, I don't know, Stefan, is this a format you've applied many times before as well? I know for me this is relatively new. We've had a lot of these in-person one-off sessions, but that combination of in-person general overview, follow up by these more segmented deep dives with team members.
Yeah, so I like that a lot, and we are collaborating on this particular customer together, so in person and online. But I just want to like give more context to our listeners is like how to approach enablement and training for the RevOps processes, because like what we do doesn't maybe apply to everybody. But I've been doing enablement for 5+ years, and I know from like my experience that you need to like push down on a couple of things. So first thing is have internal kickoff regarding the enablement that you will be delivering. Anybody that worked on the project, that's working on a project, that implemented, that built, that created a solution, you need to get everything from them if you're in a position to deliver the training.
Yeah.
That's because you need to understand which teams are involved, how they operate, what's their lingo, are there deals, or they call it differently, same as like contacts, do they call a contact differently? The second reason is you all need to align like the timeline, who will be delivering trainings, and who knows about the processes. The second thing is then you go to the customer and you have an external kickoff with them where basically you want to build like a 30-60 day adoption plan. In this case, it can be less because maybe you already did some of like trainings, but you want to define. And what we do, we have a sheet, we ask them about all the users that will be involved in a training, maybe what's their like goal from top of their head, like why John Doe, what he needs to do in HubSpot to be successful. Is it only creating new contacts and maybe assigning an ownership to somebody?
Sorry, Stefan, just to jump in on that, I feel like you touch on a good point there. So in this scenario, the folks who are working on the training are actually also the people working on the project. So there's a very good contextual understanding of exactly like you said, how exactly their portal works, the right lingo to use, etc. Like we understand it. But I know in your case, you're often looped in on these projects where you're coming in purely for the enablement, right? You don't have that whole background. These are not necessarily projects or clients you've worked with for years, right? And you need to do a little bit more of that context gathering in advance, which I think in this week's scenario was quite light on our side, again, because we had the context. But, and if I'm understanding you right, when you're being looped in on a purely enablement task or project, right? Is this how you're essentially preparing for it? Like these use cases that you're then getting clients to fill out? Like what does that process looks like to make sure that you're getting the right context and you're not just providing a generic RevOps training that essentially could be a video, right?
Yeah. So and maybe I speed it up a little bit. So, but like basically, if I'm looped in and I'm not a consultant on a project or maybe a solutions engineering in some cases, then I probably need to talk to my team first, the one that was assigned to the customer. I need to get all the mappings. We use a Lucid board. You can use Miro, whatever. I need to see the processes. I need to go into their HubSpot portal and understand it. And if I don't understand the process, I will ask my team. And then after I'm confident in what I gathered, I will have a call with a client that's usually 30 to 1 hour call, where I just want to get the key stakeholders there, the people making the decision, understand more about the teams that they're managing, who will be involved, if they're skilled in CRM or not, how they want their trainings to be delivered, because if it's online, we can do just online, we can do step-by-step guides using HubSpot Guide Creator. We can do Loom videos. We can even have an office hours or Q&A session or AMA sessions with them. So basically, just deciding who gets what and how they will benefit from it. And then what I like to do is to have like a sheet where I need to get user stories. So user stories are basically something that is helping me to guide and create the custom trainings. So for example, a user story for somebody working in sales can be Mary from sales needs to do action so she can achieve whatever goal she needs. To make it more explanational, Mary needs to enroll contacts into sequence to start the prospecting journey. So I know that then I need to create a slide about that, like what's a sequence, how to use it, where to find her leads, how to explain her, how to like analyze the sequence, and more.
And
So basically that's it. Yeah.
the more specific there, the better, right? Because in an ideal scenario, you would get something like Mary needs to reach out to industries in this specific area to these ICPs
Right.
to get them to book to either download X or book a call here, right? So then it's super specific. Then you have kind of an idea of, all right, Mary goes to work. What exactly does she need to do? And then build out the training alongside
Yeah.
it. No, I've seen those user stories that you're pushing through, and they're super helpful. I feel like more than anything, they also put clients or give clients a bit of a framework for adding some perspective. Like what actually do we need to do? It's easy to get these requests come in of like, hey, just explain Salesforce or explain HubSpot, right? Like explain our CRM, which can be extremely generic, right? But these user stories, those are big helps. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically like from one user story that is like not generic, but as you said, specific, I can understand what other tools that maybe we didn't think of can support Mary from sales. Because if she needs to reach out to a specific industry, maybe she can use segments or lists that we need to create her. If she needs to, I don't know, understand her ICP, maybe she needs to use an agent that creates her an ICP or just checks what she already has. And then also that ties to like more in-depth RevOps processes is like, are we tagging somehow from forms, from ads, from whatever source? Are we tagging our ICPs? Are we maybe tagging the personas correctly? What's the data that we're collecting for Mary? So then when she starts doing what she needs to do, she's not like, oh, I don't think this works because my leads are not the ones that I will expect to. So like everything ties together, and that's where we need to start when you want to deliver something that will help people adopt the system, because it's so big and you don't need them to know everything about everything. You just need them to know what will make them successful in their role, and hopefully by achieving that, they will be more curious into other tools. They will be more curious into maybe optimizing something that you have already created and it's working, but they will go to their manager and say, oh, this is excellent, but I think changing this or maybe creating this view or maybe turning another workflow will help me get more goals achieved in 3 to 6 months. And I think that's where we usually start, and it works. But you delivered an in-person training, and can you let our audience more about how that works? Like online is like you log, you talk, we have maybe a feedback session, but you said like a feedback survey that you did. What other tools you used? How that went?
Yeah, well, and that's why I like these kicking off with in-persons as well. Especially here, like we took our time, right? So there was it was 2 separate trainings, a little bit of a break in the middle. Typically near the end of these trainings, people get more and more engaged, right? So there's just questions, there's more back and forth, and so it's not necessarily a lecture, right? It usually is a little bit at first, kind of get the theory out of the way, and like I mentioned, just getting everyone on the same page. This is generally how your lead flow works, right? These are the different handoffs. This is where the different teams come in, and these are different tools everyone is using. Again, that's just to get everyone on the same page, so that folks in the finance team know where marketing is looking on a day-to-day basis, just to make sure that that general understanding is there. And then when it gets a little bit more specific, I like to take the second half of these trainings to be extremely practical. I'll usually ditch the slide deck at that point, and I'm just in the portal, right? And I'm just kind of navigating and going through it, showing how things would work. And that's where you get then that feedback from surveys is great to structure it, and you do need that. But I love also just during the training. I like to, how do you say that? I don't necessarily want to keep my Q&A until the end if I can help it. If it's a large group, you kind of have to, right? But if you can work with smaller groups, I like to have the questions come in dynamically, as things come up, people throw things in. It's usually just a little bit fresher, it's more relevant, and it gets conversations going. So I like having that kind of approach where it's just a little bit more back and forth, a little bit more workshop style after a while, just to get that input. And then I think so after this, we get the input, right? We're setting up our post-training deep dives. I think we touched on sort of that format. One thing I wanted to touch on a bit as well is then after all those sessions, what are some ways that we can keep or just make sure that the knowledge shared gets used, right? And that people can access the information again. I know there's different ways that we like to go about it. Now, one thing we want to look into is setting up a library of video tutorial, short little snippets that essentially cover everything that we touched on in the sessions in clear categories, right? Hey, how is the intake flow again? Let me go. There's 3-4 Loom videos or whatever tool you use that can just be easily shared by everyone. We've created these in a variety of formats. I know you actually recently introduced this to me to set this up in HubSpot's case, project records, so that there's a project in HubSpot where then folks can go in and essentially find their categorized video library, right, of tutorials that's easy to access for everyone. Is that still the main one or the main format that you would advise to use? I guess there's different ways you can go about it, but what are some of those benefits of using a project or a project style object?
Yeah, so to give more context is like I always wanted to use a project feature in HubSpot, but it was like limited. And
quite
in
new,
some
right,
of my
well? Maybe also just to point that out, projects in HubSpot.
Yeah. So it was like limited. So it's a feature where you can just now create a project object. You can have custom properties. You have dependent tasks. You can set up milestones. I know that's like currently in product beta. Hopefully we will get them in workflows, and we can like then based off whatever happens in a project, maybe send some like messaging to Slack channels or Teams. Maybe create an Asana task, whatever. But I always wanted to use it, but it was limited because it was like now with HubSpot announcing that in inbound and making it more robust, I think it's a good case to use it because everybody gets access to projects. Not everybody gets access to knowledge base because like if you have a service pro, you can have knowledge base, make it internal, make it locked for certain teams using a list. So like finance team gets only these trainings, sales team gets only this training. But like the project tool is where I think everything that's happening should live, because you can easily change the timeline, update the milestone, everybody know where they're at. You can link everything, you can give knowledge base links, instructions in a specific like task, and that's what we want to achieve after the in-person that you just delivered. Is like we want to keep those people engaged, and we want to make sure that when we are creating that custom trainings or custom tasks for them to like test what we build and how to use it, we also want to make it for them to log into HubSpot. So it's not living outside, because that makes they need to log there. But we can also comment there, so it's easy. You don't need to send an email to this person on this team, to this person, or maybe to somebody that's in between. You can just tag a person and say, hi, Mary from sales, how are you comfortable using sequences? Have you find a way different, like, are you getting lost when you need to analyze it? What's something that I can support you with? So you can just easily tag people that are in HubSpot and ask them questions. That's how we keep everybody
Yeah.
in line there. Yeah.
So would you then, because then this is where I guess these projects would be somewhat different from knowledge bases, right? Where knowledge bases are essentially more libraries, categorized libraries, whereas then these projects are more projects, as the name suggests, where they're running people through a variety of steps, right? Almost kind of like a post-training homework that you're getting to put your skills to the test. How would you set up these projects? What I mean by that is in the scenario that we're talking about now, we have a training. We're going to divvy this up in 5 or 6 post-training sessions that are relevant to different teams. Would you set up a separate project essentially per course, like per track, or would you gather everything in one large project, and then within that, and someone from marketing versus someone from sales would have a different experience when running through that same project? Like, how would you go about setting those up?
Yeah, so that's like a tricky question because we were thinking about how to set it correctly because like right now you can associate a project to a contact. So for example, if there are like 5 people from sales, maybe they only have a sales project, and then in that sales project we have all the looms, all the recordings, the decks, the instructions, and then we can keep track of that. But
Sure. Yeah.
I'm more of like, let's create one big project and using like a pipeline and statuses based of like what's the, I don't know, a property into that, assign it to somebody or associate it based of that. So I think that's where I'm heading because I don't want to make 10 or 15 projects and that's just like one customer with a big team, so that can get messy very, very, very quickly. But I think
Okay.
making a property that's like role based, that's what I like, is like, is this person going to be an admin, so we know what we need to
Okay.
deliver? Is this person is this maybe somebody that's identified as a champion, so then we know
Right.
that we need to hit that person with more and more
Sure.
emails or maybe more and more content so they can distribute that and help other team members. Is
Right.
it an
And that would all
executive?
be
Yeah.
within the same project, you mean, right? And
Yeah,
then we just have
in
a,
the same
okay,
project. Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think staying in the same project, don't overcomplicate. If you need to spread it out, you can, but I think just staying in the same project because like
Yeah.
then the key stakeholders that were on that first kickoff, they can track that how the project is progressing. So for example,
Yeah.
you have a property
And
that's a drop down, that's like a sales team enablement session second,
yeah.
and who was attending that, because you can easily see who attended or not because the meeting is logged there.
Yeah.
So like then at the end of the trainings for maybe a sales team, you can see, okay, so Mary and John, they attended 3 out of 5, so probably they need more support because they were busy, they didn't attend it, maybe they didn't rewatch the training, so let's
Yeah.
do more support in Q&A or
Yeah.
AMA, whatever. So I think that's where I think
And
the project makes sense.
yeah. And another thing you kind of touch on, that's sort of like the last thing I wanted to cover as well, is these projects can be linked to contacts, right? And so what we could essentially have is within a client, within an organization, there can be different champions or, like you mentioned, key stakeholders, right? Who could essentially be the go-tos within their org for, let's say, all the folks on the sales team, marketing team, et cetera, when it comes to the full enablement or the post enablement training sessions and completion. So if there be one person assigned per project, saying like, who would do exactly what you just said, going in and saying, hey, Mary completed 3 out of 5, but perhaps needs some follow-up. Let me guide her in the right direction. Getting those sort of champions in organizations. And I know that's a big focus that you typically have as well, and it's something I'm trying to mirror as well, which is when we are running these trainings and we're sort of in the post training period where we're splitting up different groups and having these more segmented deep dive sessions, identifying like one or two people per group who just seem to be grasping it quite well, who could essentially function as almost like a champion within their team, and then empowering them to do so, right? Saying like, all right, maybe like a quick one-to-one session, make sure you got everything you need, here's all the assets, here are all the video materials, etc. And really having them become champions within their teams to help guide the rest of the teams. I'm quite new to that part of it, but I wonder like what your view on that is, on identifying and then getting champions set up and running within organizations so that they can essentially take these learnings from these enablement sessions and make sure that it gets properly applied, right? That there's continuity, that after X amount of months, that knowledge is still being pushed and shared. Like, how do you go about identifying and training champions or training the trainers, depending on how you want to call
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I like that concept because I think you can easily identify in some cases who is the champion, because like when you deliver a training, the person that is like maybe already like raising their hand and saying, look, I already did that, I already tested that, that's like a clear indicator that somebody is like pumped to learn
Smart
more.
ass.
Yeah, like smartass, yeah. But then also like if somebody is asking a lot of questions, taking notes down, maybe reaching after a session via email, can you clarify this and this? Did I did this wrongly? Those are usually the person that are champions that are trying their everything to understand what you're delivering, and then just making sure that you you are in like communication with them on a level that's like their speed, so you're not overwhelming them but you're not also not overwhelming them. What I mean about that is like maybe let them know like, I think you covered the material great, I think you're fully enabled, are you willing to run the next session 15-30 minutes where you will go through the slides that I prepared and explain to your team how to use this tool? Maybe they run an office hours with the trainer. So like they are here also to take questions from their teammates, because when they do that, it
Yeah.
sticks to the whole team,
Yeah.
because the whole team
Yeah.
then perceives them as somebody that's like a
100%.
expert in what they
Yeah.
need to achieve, but they're also trusting them because like a trainer is somebody that's not in the organization, that probably they see a couple of weeks and they don't see them, but somebody that's from their team, that they can like in office or maybe remotely just like ping in a Slack channel and say, hey, can you remind me about this? Because people are usually like afraid to ask questions after the training to a trainer. That's what I'm believing. So I think that's where the train the
Yeah.
trainer model sticks and helps everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, no, cool. I know we covered a lot, and I always take notes during these things. But I feel like just to recap it, we talked about like the format. So the format to use for enablement trainings. Obviously, this is somewhat decided by, client to client, organization to organization, what's possible. But I think we agree like a general ideal scenario would be more of a generic full team kind of alignment session, whether that's in person or not, where it's, hey, everyone's on the same page, this is the general flow of things, and then have that breakout into more tailored not individual, but segmented deep dive sessions per team, per groups, right? So I think that format generally is something that we want to use, and then using that first generic session, right, to gather input and feedback from different team members so you can tailor your deep dive sessions. I think that's an important one. We talked about the context gathering piece of it, right? Whether that means looping in consultants or people who've been working on with organizations or on projects for a longer time, who can help give you that client-specific insight to make sure your enablement, your training is personalized. It fits them. It's not just a generic HubSpot training. You mentioned that the use of user stories, right, and having clients fill those out to be a great context gatherer as well, right? Where people are really in detail laying out, individual team members are mentioning what exactly it is they're trying to achieve in their own words, which we can then translate into an effective training session. So I think those use cases, or those user stories rather, are a great way to do that. We talked about the post-training side of things. So how do we make sure things continue to be used? There's knowledge bases, right, where we want to create these sort of libraries of structured Loom videos or whatever format you're using, but segmented, short format pieces of content, right, that go over all of the topics of the enablement training, and then using things like projects, which are essentially like post-training homework, right, guiding people through a series of tasks and dummy tasks and making sure people are understanding and grasping and using what's actually been covered in these trainings. So I think that's where these projects can be quite useful. And then lastly, the use of or identifying and setting internal champions, right? And so you mentioned the way we can identify those, obviously just people who are more engaged, right? Identifying them early, looping them in early. You mentioned things like joint office hours, joint training sessions, because as you mentioned, when post training the information comes from someone within the organization, it tends to stick a lot more than us external enablement trainers who come in and talk a bunch of stuff. It's just a lot more effective if we can get someone involved early on. So involving them early on and initially having sort of a joint approach together with one or two champions, that kind of helps create these internal champions long term. So yeah, I think we covered a lot there. Anything you wanted to add to that, or is that a good summary?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. I just wanted to like quickly add maybe the tools that you should use when you're doing those
Sure.
like enablement processes. We mentioned most of them, so I would just like to say like Gmeet or Zoom for online. In person, I
Sure.
think everybody know what's good for in person, but we have I think we have a stories like where we created a QR code and then handed it off, and then people can easily scan that while you're doing the in-person training, and they get they can access the feedback survey. So like any survey tool, it can be a HubSpot survey tool, but any other survey tool, I think the feedback
Sure.
surveys are very important. And then like the step-by-step creator from HubSpot, the guide creator, it's pretty good
Yeah.
because it's point and click how to do stuff, and that's just
Yeah.
for like simple things, for quick wins like connecting your email, setting up your notification settings to not get overwhelmed, accessing your profile and updating the profile or office or working hours. And then dashboards. Like dashboards are powerful because you can bring any URL to them. So like you can have a training dashboard for the whole organization, and then you have sections for teams. So for example, you can link there the guide creators that you need for a sales team. You can link the training deck just for the marketing team that you delivered, plus all the looms. And what's good about dashboard is then you can see who viewed the dashboard, how many times did they view it or didn't view the dashboard, and then you can also decide with them when you will be emailing the whole dashboard with reports. So like, is it
Yeah.
every 3 days? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? You can do a lot from that dashboards. So I think those are the like some of the tools that everybody had at their disposal,
Yeah.
but maybe are not thinking in a way how to effectively use them.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that HubSpot Guide Creator is an awesome one. No, great. I know we're pretty much over time. So, Stjepan, obviously we can't leave without having a beer review. So, let us know your beer of the week. What have you been drinking?
So I had on a Wednesday, I was with my kid walking across the town. It was a little sunny, and we were like, okay, let's go to our favorite restaurant. And we ordered a pizza. And I was thinking, okay, I'll have a beer, but I want to just have a little bit. So I ordered a Chimay. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So it was a
Close enough.
Chimay
Yeah,
green
Chimay.
beer. Yeah, you probably pronounce it way better than me. So it's a strong blonde ale beer. I think 10 or plus ABV, but it was pretty good because I didn't like, I was just enjoying it. Like I had a sip, talk with my kid, and then maybe in 10, 15 minutes had another one. It's not a big beer. It's not like a pint. It's like smaller version.
Right.
Little green bottle, Chimay. I just love them. It's Trappist beer. So that's one of
It
my
was good.
favorites when you just want to enjoy and don't have like a couple of beers, because like after one I was pretty okay not having another one because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
pretty
they're quite
strong. Yeah.
strong. You said it was the green version, right? She made green
Yeah,
that you were
green
having?
one.
Yeah. Okay. So they have a
Yeah.
blue, a red. I think they have a couple
What's
of
your
other
favorite
versions.
Chimay beer? Do you have
I think the
one?
blue, it's the default. I don't think I've even ever tried the green. So I do need to try that one out.
Okay.
Um,
And but
no, but that's it.
what did you drink something in New Hampshire
I
or?
did. I mean, had to for the podcast, obviously. So, and we were actually, so my hotel is around the corner of a brewery, Spyglass Brewery, local one. Really good. Popped in there 2 days ago. Just by myself. There wasn't really much else to do here, so that was perfectly fine. And they had a great collection of beers. It was highly recommended. And their number one seller was the State Machine. So it's a State Machine. I guess it's a New Hampshire uh, beer from Spyglass Brewery. I loved it. The lady next to me at the bar actually recommended it. It's an IPA, and I'm not really an IPA guy. She said, "No, but this is an IPA for people who don't really like IPA." So, all right, that sounds like me. So we gave that a try. Indeed, it's not the strongest IPA taste, I guess you could say. Very smooth, kind of between an IPA and a lager, I feel, in terms of taste. But no, extremely good. Really one of my favorite ones that I've tried this year so far. So, Spyglass Brewery, State Machine, yeah, great one. And a great bar as well. I must say they had the what do you call those? The tanks, the brewer tanks, just within the bar itself. So you're almost literally sitting within the actual brewery. It's quite a nice experience. So no, that was a great one. So okay, awesome. But I feel like we covered a lot today. That was good. Stepan, any other closing words?
No, I think I need to see pictures from that brewery when you can share it with me because
Oh
now
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
intrigued.
yeah.
But like, yeah, let us know any topics that you would like us to cover. Share this with anybody that you think is beneficial to. If you have any questions regarding any topic, RevOps or CRM, you can reach us at our LinkedIn accounts or uh, probably any other social media where we at. And yeah,
Please
happy
do.
Friday to everybody. Uh,
There you go. Happy
that's
Friday.
it. Yeah.
We'll talk again soon. See you guys.
See ya.